Syria's reconstruction after more than a decade of conflict. However, the situation remains very tense. Hundreds of Israeli attacks inside the Syrian territory over the past year, and also the recent Israeli attack in Beit Jin on the outskirts of Damascus has escalated the regional temperature. Syria has condemned the attack as nothing less than a war crime and an infringement on its sovereignty. But Israel maintains that it was targeting some militants from Jama Islamiyah, which the Israelis claim is actually a Lebanese Islamist outfit that is aligned with Hamas. All right, let's now get you some updates from India, where India's border security force has issued some fresh warnings about terror activity across the border in Pakistan. The BSF has said that Islamabad has again reactivated more than 70 terror launch pads in its territory. On Monday, the Inspector General for BSF's Kashmir Frontier, Ashok Yadav, said that nearly about 69 terror launch pads were active along the line of control. And he said that over 100 terrorists are currently biding their time there.
Our G unit is keeping a close watch on all the 69 active launching pads along the LOC, where around 100 to 120 terrorists have been waiting to infiltrate.
In a separate statement, the BSF's Deputy Inspector General Vikram Kunwar said that 72 terror launch pads had been activated. He said that 60 were actually beyond the LOC and 12 were across the international border in Pakistan's Sialkot and Zafarwal areas. And according to the BSF, each launch pad usually harbors anywhere from 2 to 3 terrorists, and they look for opportunities to cross the LOC or the border and to wreak havoc in India. Initially, in the wake of Operation Sindoor, Pakistan had reportedly moved its terror launch pads further away from the border with India.
The damage we had caused to launching pads of terrorists in Jammu and Kashmir frontier, we have intelligence inputs which indicate that some of the launching pads have been moved from the forward areas to different locations so that they are not in the firing range.
However, the reactivation of the terror launch pads has India's security forces on high alert. The BSF DIG Vikram Kunwar has now said that for Islamabad, old habits die really hard. And the BSF is saying that it is ready for any kind of military misadventurism from Pakistan. Asia is reeling from one of the deadliest floods in recent memory. At least about 1,200 people have lost their lives across Sri Lanka, Indonesia, Thailand and Malaysia after back-to-back cyclones and relentless rains that have triggered catastrophic flooding. The floodwater has reportedly started receding, but the humanitarian crisis has only just begun for people in these countries. Now, hundreds of thousands of people are stranded in shelters without adequate access to clean drinking water, food or medical supplies, including in Sri Lanka, which has been battered by cyclonic storm Ditwa. In view of this, India has launched a massive relief mission under Operation Sagar Bandhu. 2 Indian naval ships, the INS Vikrant and INS Udayagiri, already in Colombo for the Sri Lankan Navy's 75th anniversary, shifted from ceremonial duty to emergency deployment. And both vessels rushed large consignments of essential supplies to the worst affected regions, while naval helicopters carried out aerial reconnaissance and then joined the ongoing search and rescue missions, helping rescue the stranded Sri Lankans. To strengthen relief work further, the Indian Navy's INS Sukanya has now docked at the northern Sri Lankan city of Trincomalee with additional critical aid. Officials have confirmed coordination between New Delhi and Colombo remains continuous to speed up deliveries. The Indian Navy has said that its rapid mobilization reinforces its position as the first responder in the Indian Ocean region and reflects India's commitment to stand firmly with neighbours under the Mahasagar vision and the Neighbourhood First policy. In a separate humanitarian gesture, India has also granted overflight clearance to a Pakistani relief aircraft carrying aid to Sri Lanka. And Pakistan has filed a request and India has approved it the same day within 4 hours. The decision, the officials emphasized, was based solely on humanitarian grounds despite the direct overflight routes between the two nations remaining shut following heightened tensions earlier this year after the Pahalgam terror attack and also India's Operation Sindoor. Pakistan's Ministry of Foreign Affairs has issued a statement to the contrary, alleging delays on India's part in processing additional flight clearance for a Pakistani aircraft, further alleging that India continues to block humanitarian assistance from Pakistan to Sri Lanka. India, though, has firmly rejected Pakistan's claims. The Ministry of External Affairs in a statement has said that they rejected Pakistan's ridiculous statement, stating that is another attempt of spreading what is known as anti-India information, while also simultaneously confirming Pakistan's request to use India's airspace for humanitarian assistance to Sri Lanka has been expedited. Now, across Indonesia, the residents are beginning to assess the scale of the devastation in the country's northern part of Sumatra. Residents waded through thick mud as they began cleaning up of what remained of their homes and businesses. The destruction follows days of relentless flooding that officials say has killed at least 700 people, with hundreds more still missing and thousands who remain displaced.
Tahu bagaimana caranya, makanya Pak kami minta tolong sama Bapak supaya kami bisa dibantu cara kayak mana betulin rumah kami ini Pak, supaya kami bisa tempat tidur lagi Pak.
Communications in several Indonesian regions remain down. Power is still being restored. Road access is being blocked by landslides, forcing rescue teams to rely on helicopters and airlifts. Southern Thailand continues to grapple with the flooding disaster that authorities say is the worst in decades. The Thai military has in fact deployed helicopters, boats and specialized units, but the terrain and limited equipment have reportedly slowed further rescue efforts. The strong currents, collapsed bridges and submerged roads have left parts of the region inaccessible across the country. Nearly 2.7 million people across almost 1 million households have been affected. The focus remains on the people of the flood-hit countries across Asia, families who've lost everything and now depend on emergency aid to survive, with more rain predicted in several parts ravaged by floods in the coming days. The authorities have warned that the disaster is far from over. And also later on the show, we'll get you more about the United States. Is it about to strike Venezuela anytime now? For days, that's of course been the question. We decode the picture and tell you where things stand at this moment. And we'll also tell you about why the new images of the 3-eye atlas are raising questions about its alien technology. So is the United States about to strike Venezuela anytime now? For many days, that's of course been the question in Caracas, across the Caribbean and around the world. No, it's because the United States is actually tightening its military posture dramatically and just off Venezuela's shores. In recent weeks, the United States has amassed an array of different assets in the Caribbean, dozens of advanced fighter jets, thousands of troops, guided missile destroyers, special operations forces, armed drones, gunships, and even, according to reports, a nuclear submarine. But the question is, of course, this: what is the purpose of this Donald Trump armada then? At this point, it remains unclear. But what is clear is that all of this is happening amid some rapidly escalating tensions with Venezuela. So what is Donald Trump's strategy here? Is it regime change that the United States is again planning? If not, why dispatch an entire naval and air armada so close to the borders of Venezuela? On the 1st of December, the US Marine Corps MV-22 Ospreys and Harrier II jets were spotted at the Merchidita International Airport. And in Ponce, Puerto Rico, the aircrafts were seen delivering supplies, that is military supplies, as the crews unloaded this more military hardware and cargo. The personnel moved into bunkhouses and ground teams secured the area. Puerto Rico is fast becoming a potential forward hub for US operations linked to the Venezuelan crisis. The build-up follows a series of American strikes on speedboats, which the Americans claim were actually being used for narco-trafficking by Venezuelan gangs in the Caribbean and also in the Eastern Pacific. Now, these American attacks in the Caribbean and in the Pacific have killed more than 80 people since early September. But one can argue that a war against narco-terrorists does not require this level of firepower. Now, behind the scenes, the Pentagon has reportedly generated a number of options to expand this campaign to target inside the Venezuelan territory itself, presumably in the hope of driving Nicolas Maduro out of power. But President Donald Trump late last month denied that he has any such plans for regime change, while senior White House officials are still unclear about the legal basis for carrying out these attacks in the Caribbean. And yet the deployments by the Americans continue. Now, this comes as the United States is increasing pressure on Maduro, whose options for a US guaranteed safe passage have now narrowed. A brief phone call last month between Maduro and Donald Trump ended with Trump rejecting most of Maduro's demands. Now, soon afterwards, Trump declared Venezuela's airspace to be shut in its entirety, further heightening the confusion and the anxiety in Caracas. When asked whether his comments signaled imminent possible attacks on Venezuela, Donald Trump responded, "Don't read anything into it just yet." But the legality of the administration's deadly attacks against suspected drug traffickers has raised a number of difficult questions, even within Washington, especially after reports that the survivors of one of the attacks was targeted again in a follow-up strike, triggering accusations of potential war crimes. So as fears of US military action continue to mount, Nicolas Maduro has accused Washington of using drug trafficking as nothing more than a pretext to try and bring about regime change in Caracas. He has rejected what he has described as a slave's peace for the region. But the American campaign has already killed more than 80 people in the attacks that the Americans have carried out in the Caribbean and in the Pacific. Some have described these attacks to be extrajudicial killings. The Trump administration maintains that it is effectively at war only with the narco-terrorists, and yet the cost of this show of force are enormous. Now, operating a carrier strike group burns millions of dollars a day. Each boat strike costs hundreds of thousands of dollars, and the deployment has indirect strategic consequences. With the USS Gerald R. Ford positioned in South America, the US currently has no carriers in the waters of Europe or West Asia, and any land-based strikes would rely on Tomahawk missiles, of which the United States has a finite supply. The consequences of a full-scale attack would be even more uncertain. Air or missile strikes might not drive out Nicolas Maduro or may not trigger a coup, and a marine landing could lead to a prolonged quagmire, even if Maduro were to step down or is captured. The political aftermath is going to be extremely chaotic, creating more and not less space for cartels and traffickers to expand. And for Donald Trump, who fashions himself as the peacemaker president, surely a new war is hardly the image that he wants for himself. And if the White House's priority is to stem the flow of drugs into the United States, then it may need an entirely different strategy. More Coast Guard cutters, more sea operatives, and not more aircraft carriers or nuclear submarines stationed along the coast of Venezuela. Amidst its worsening standoff with China, Japan is now preparing to send missiles to the Philippines. According to reports in the Japanese media, the move could mark one of Japan's most far-reaching defense exports since it imposed some strict weapons transfer rules decades ago. The missiles reportedly under consideration are Japan's Type 3 medium-range surface-to-air missiles, the same one that Japan plans to deploy on its Yonaguni Island that is located just 110 kilometers from Taiwan. China has already called the deployment to be extremely dangerous, and with this latest development, Japan is also taking a step that could further irritate Beijing. Japan has reportedly held informal talks with Manila, and a formal study of the exports will begin once Tokyo scraps its restrictions on defense equipment sales. A policy change is expected sometime next year. The Type 3 missile is a truck-mounted air defense system that has a range of about 50 kilometers. It is designed to intercept aircraft and cruise missiles, and Philippine officials have already expressed interest in acquiring it. Separately, the potential sale comes as Manila is facing growing pressure from the Chinese forces in the South China Sea and sits on the first island chain just 140 kilometers from Taiwan. All of this is happening as Tokyo is moving to rewrite its 3 principles on defense exports, rules that have heavily restricted weapon sales since at least 1967. The current guidelines allow only 5 categories of defense equipment to be exported. That is rescue, transport, warning, surveillance and mine sweeping. But Japan has been steadily expanding its military role. In October, the newly elected Japanese Prime Minister Sane Takaichi had said that she will raise the defense spending to 2% of the Japanese GDP by as early as March next year. That is 2 years ahead of schedule. And Tokyo and Manila have also deepened their military ties. A new defense pact now allows the Japanese troops to deploy in the Philippines. For the first time since the end of the Second World War, the 2 nations have already held joint military drills with the United States, including a 5-day exercise in Cebu. And this has got China very worried, with Beijing repeatedly warning against Japan's growing military footprint in the region. Remember last month we told you as to how Tokyo's deployment of the Type 3 missile on Yonaguni and the export of the Patriot interceptors to the United States had irked Beijing, with China calling both moves to be extremely dangerous for many years. Now, Beijing has accused Japan's right wing of trying to abandon its pacifist constitution and to build a more assertive military. The prospect of missile exports to the Philippines is likely to intensify the frayed tensions. The fears of an imminent invasion with China continue to shape the defense planning in Taiwan. President Lai Ching-te has overseen a drone training session for the island's reserve forces in Yilin, calling it a major milestone in the island's new military strategy. The inspection has come just days after Lai Ching-te unveiled a sweeping $40 billion defense spending proposal that is aimed at countering China's growing pressure. Footage shows reservists operating the Hummer 2 drones, part of Taiwan's push to modernize its forces and also to strengthen deterrence. Take a look at these images. The Pakistani government has buckled under pressure from the PTI. Imran Khan's sisters, Uzma, has managed to meet him inside the Adiala prison. And the development has come after 1 month of radio silence on the condition of the jailed former Pakistani Prime Minister. Now, earlier in the day, Imran Khan was allowed to enter inside the premises of the Adiala prison. She met with Imran Khan and then gave his health update.
Praise be to God, Imran Khan's health is completely fine. However, he is being mentally tortured by keeping him in complete isolation. He is not allowed to leave the cell nor to talk to anyone.
So even after multiple requests and also a court order, Imran Khan was not allowed to meet anyone for the last 1 month, and this had prompted the PTI to stage a march to Adiala prison demanding that they should be allowed to see him. The Pakistani government deployed its usual playbook to stop the PTI workers from entering into Rawalpindi. Security was beefed up outside the Adiala prison and a curfew was imposed on public gatherings in the city for the next 3 days. From the parliament to the streets, Imran Khan's party cornered the Pakistani government. The PTI leaders staged protests inside the National Assembly demanding for the release of Imran Khan. The Minister of State for Interior, Talal Chaudhary, also announced the imposition of Section 144. He said that it had been imposed in the wake of intelligence reports, and he linked the matter to terrorism, saying that the militants were looking for such opportunities to spread fear and to make headlines. Now, throughout the month of November, Imran Khan's sisters, Noreen Khan, Alima Khan and Uzma Khan, were at the forefront of the protests. They demanded that the authorities should allow them to meet with their brother. The Pakistani government has filed more than 200 cases against Imran Khan in January 2025, who was sentenced to 14 years in prison over a land scandal. His wife Bushra Bibi was handed a 7-year jail sentence in the same case, and Imran Khan has been convicted in at least about 3 other cases, including the Tosha Khana case, the state secrets case and the unlawful marriage case. And the residents of New Delhi, India's national capital, woke up gasping once again. On National Pollution Control Day, that is meant to honour the 1984 Bhopal gas tragedy victims, the national capital found itself struggling through some of the worst air quality that it has witnessed this season. Now, the brief improvement that the residents had observed for a period of 2 days has vanished. A dense layer of toxic smog has settled over Delhi this morning, pushing pollution levels upwards. Images from across the city showed streets fading into a grey haze and vehicles crawling through low visibility and the residents wearing face masks. The air that hovered in the poor bracket over the weekend is now plunged into the very poor category. And according to the Central Pollution Control Board's Delhi Air Quality Index stood at about 372 at 4 p.m, placing it once again in the very poor category. Multiple monitoring stations even hovered around the 400 mark, falling into the severe range. For much of October and November, pollution readings in the national capital have swung between very poor and severe, leading to Delhi residents inhaling high concentrations of PM 2.5, nitrogen dioxide and carbon monoxide, all known to penetrate deep into the lungs. The World Health Organization has warned that unsafe air is directly linked to life-threatening illnesses, including stroke, heart disease, pneumonia, lung cancer and chronic obstructive pulmonary disease. Now, tonight, the grim irony still remains. On a day that is dedicated to pollution control across the country, India's national capital continues to battle for clean air. Now, in Kenya, women are taking to the open road in growing numbers. They're forming some powerful new biking communities, and what began as a small group of riders has now grown into one of the country's fastest expanding female biker communities, known as the Inked Sisterhood. The group brings together women from all walks of life, lawyers, scientists, consultants, united by a shared passion for riding and also a desire to challenge long-standing stereotypes about who belongs on a motorbike. Today, the members say that the crew has now become a source of empowerment and safety both on and off the road. Take a look at some of these images. Climate disasters have been escalating across Africa since 2022, and in Somaliland, it has pushed millions from their homes. With water sources drying up, communities are now in desperate and dire need, and they're calling for urgent support. And WION's correspondent Saloni Murarka travelled to an internal displacement camp in Salahle, one of Somaliland's worst hit districts, to meet with the displaced families who are fighting to survive. Take a look at this report.
Across the dusty plains of Salahle, survival has turned into a relentless struggle. The ground is parched, the wells have run dry, and the air is thick with a quiet sense of despair.
In the sprawling outskirts of Hargeisa, which is the capital of the Somaliland, thousands of people displaced by the drought or the war have settled into these camps and call these camps home. Once temporary shelters have now become permanent settlements for thousands of Somalians who have been displaced by the drought and the climate crisis. For many families, the climate change discussion is not far away. It's a daily reality, like this one family that I'm sitting with here at the moment.
We fled the village of Kulo Kabul after all the livestock we owned died due to the drought that struck us. Here, we have nothing. We are suffering from hunger and thirst, and we urgently need assistance.
All around this camp holds 600 families, nearly, and all of them have built these kind of camps which are standing on the branches of the trees, and they have covered the tents with anything and everything they can find, with cloths, or they even have small containers that they hold and they carry to the catchments area to fill up the water for their families.
Preliminary findings show worsening food insecurity, disappearing pastures, and a total collapse of rural livelihoods. According to the UN, in neighboring Somalia, 3.5 million people have been displaced this year, and 5.2 million now require humanitarian assistance. Authorities have issued urgent warnings, noting that over 60% of traditional water sources have dried up. Boreholes are overstretched, and displacement continues to rise daily.
I have been living here for more than 8 years after being displaced by the prolonged droughts. We lost everything, our livestock and our farms. The most pressing challenges we face today are the severe shortages of food and clean water. We urgently appeal for immediate assistance from anyone or any organization that can help.
Authorities and locals have appealed for urgent support for the hundreds of thousands of people affected.
This dam, built with UNDP support, has become a lifeline for the people in the IDP settlements in Salahle and the surrounding IDP settlements. Thousands of people rely on this water for drinking. And for the very first time, this dam has retained water for 2 seasons, sustaining both animals and people.
Locals say UNDP's support has been vital, particularly through the construction of water catchments that help local farmers. But the challenges are still overwhelming. Families say they have no access to clean water, no nearby health facilities, and schools are miles away from the IDP camps. Local authorities admit they urgently need more dams and long-term water solutions. The community has been hit by one crisis after the other, from recurring droughts to worsening soil erosion. Since 2018, at least 5 cyclones have struck the area, destroying more than 100 homes, with the most recent one in 2024. To make matters worse, prosopis trees are spreading quickly and depleting vital groundwater, combined with severe soil erosion washing away fertile land. They are a growing threat to both crops and livestock.
This is where I'm at the moment in Somaliland. This camp is at the front line of the climate struggle, where the droughts are becoming longer, rains are unpredictable, and land is very fragile. Yet in the heart of these challenges, people are solving these issues with small steps. One that I want to highlight here, another aspect, is the UNDP initiative. To increase the safety and security of the people, UNDP has installed solar system street lights. It's around the camp that we see, and the powerhouse has been set up on that side of the corner. I'm Saloni Murarka reporting from Somaliland in Africa.
In a step towards rewriting the rules of public safety and inclusivity, the Hyderabad Metro Rail, for the very first time, has inducted 20 transgender security personnel on the platforms and inside the trains, marking a powerful shift towards safer travel. Now, these personnel have completed their induction training recently and started duty this week. With nearly 5 lakh people using the metro every single day, of which more than 30% are women, this move reportedly aims to create a much safer and more welcoming experience. Hyderabad Metro Rail, operating across 3 corridors with 57 stations, is amongst the country's most advanced urban transit networks. The new initiative aligns with the Telangana government's broader commitment to equal opportunity for marginalized communities, and last year, the government began opening up public service roles to transgender individuals, starting with assistant traffic marshals. The Metro's action builds on that policy by creating more space for inclusion in everyday public life. The newly deployed personnel will help passengers with directions, baggage scanning and also general assistance, while maintaining a visible and proactive presence in stations and ladies-only coaches. Hyderabad Metro says that this step isn't just about filling roles, it's also about ensuring that every passenger feels protected, respected and valued. And WION hosted its Season 3 of Mission Sustainability 2025, One Step Towards Sustainability. The day-long conclave featured 5 power-packed sessions with leaders, innovators and visionaries to reshape the future and to save the planet for generations to come. The first session, Solving the Plastic Puzzle, delved into the critical issue of plastic pollution, discussing the need for international cooperation to curb its devastating impact on our aquatic systems. The Karamveer Chakra award-winning environmentalist Ramveer Tanwar highlighted the grave impact of single-use plastics, which are choking our water bodies. Environmentalist Bharati Chaturvedi stressed on the need to drastically reduce pollution, while Vimlendu Jha urged individuals to become plastic responsible. The second session, Recycling for the Future, focused on how recycling could serve as a powerful tool for conserving natural resources. Ashok Khosla, a renowned Indian environmentalist and entrepreneur, shared the 4 R's of recycling: reduce, refuse, repair and recycle. Now, Aarti Khosla, the founder of Climate Trends, highlighted the opportunity for industries to incorporate sustainable manufacturing, while Ruby Makhija, an award-winning community sustainability leader, stressed on the need to begin with small steps, like making our neighborhoods clean. The third session, Do Not Waste, focused on strategies for effective waste management and for the creation of a digital ecosystem for more efficient and sustainable waste practices. Now, during the discussion, we had Shannon B. Olson, the director of Echo Network, called for implementing solutions that are already there. Ripu Daman Singh Bevli, an environmentalist and social activist, emphasized that change happens when communities join hands. The session 4 was about EVs electrifying the global ecosystem, delved into India's roadmap for EV transition, the challenges to adoption and also the role of innovation in creating a clean transportation future. And during this discussion, we had Vikas Mishra, the founder and CEO of Moving, Akash Gupta, the co-founder and CEO of Zip Electric, and Chandra Bhushan, the president and CEO of iForest. And the experts stressed on the need to ramp up charging infra and for EVs to be affordable in order to succeed in Tier 2 and Tier 3 cities. The fifth and the final session was on alternative energy, models of sustainability. The discussion featured three esteemed guests: Kishore Nair, CEO of Avada Energy; Arshi Bhai Kambaria, the MD and CEO of Opera Energy; Nathan Davis, Trade and Investment Commissioner, Austrade. And the experts highlighted the need to boost grid infra and to improve availability of land and to expand cooperation in renewable energy. Union Minister for Road Transport and Highways, Nitin Gadkari, delivered the keynote address for the summit. And during his address, Gadkari stressed that automobile sector is crucial for India's growth trajectory. But 40% of air pollution is caused by automobiles alone, making green fuel as the only viable alternative for a sustainable future.
We are using it for tractor, for car, for buses, everywhere. So the green fuel is the future. At any cost, we have to reduce the pollution. And for that reason, alternative fuel and biofuel is very important. And hydrogen is the most important thing because it is the fuel for the future.
Now, speaking about the adoption of electric vehicles in India, Gadkari highlighted that fast charging infra is crucial for the EVs.
A charging system which can be useful from scooter, two-wheeler, three-wheeler, four-wheeler, truck and buses. Fast charging system. That is the need. And a lot of options are there.
Now, Gadkari also said that he feels bad about air pollution in Delhi and it needs a strong political will to solve this issue. Now, Gadkari called politics as an instrument of socio-economic reforms and called himself a humble social worker.
I feel that politics is an instrument of socio-economic reform, and 95% I am doing social work. The power politics is different. Satta Karan. Rajkaran is not only power politics, Satta Karan. Samaj Karan, Rashtra Karan and Vikas Karan is very important. I am working in agriculture, different fields as a social worker.
Now, a visitor from deep space has fired up some fresh controversy again. New thermal gradient images of interstellar object 3I Atlas have revealed jets that look shockingly organized. And the scientists are asking, is this natural physics or is there something far stranger? Our next story gives you more details about this evolving cosmic mystery. Take a look.
The universe just handed us another riddle, and this one is firing jets. Fresh imaging of 3I Atlas, the Manhattan-sized interstellar object slicing past our solar system, has revealed something no one expected. Structured thermal plumes, firing in repeating patterns, almost as if under intentional control. The data comes from a new technique called thermal gradient imaging, capable of detecting tiny heat variations across fast-moving objects when applied to 3I Atlas. The results stunned researchers. Instead of random outgassing the kind seen in ordinary comets, the object released narrow-pulsed jets. They were evenly spaced, repeated, directional, almost engineered. Scientists are careful with their words, but they are not hiding their curiosity. 3I Atlas already carries a reputation. Telescopes around the world are zooming on this once-in-a-lifetime space object. Astronomers have captured its unusually smooth surface, its perfect axial stability, and its refusal to behave like any comet we've ever tracked. No dust tail, no chaotic spin, no natural fragmentation. Instead, it moved with eerie uniformity as if following a flight plan. And now, these new heat maps raise the stakes again. Researchers say the jets could theoretically be natural, the result of buried volatiles venting through narrow channels. But the clean patterns, the timing, the directional force, these resemble maneuvering bursts, not geological accidents. For now, scientists stay grounded. No claims, no conclusions, just one fact. 3I Atlas keeps behaving as if it has something to say, and the universe is listening.
Well, that's all the time we have in this edition of Gravitas. But just as we go, we'll leave you with Gravitas World View. Thanks for watching.
WION, India's global voice, the channel that brings you the biggest stories from across the world through India's lens. Now available in more than 190 countries worldwide. Because we believe that the world is one. Watch us in Africa, Europe, USA and Canada, South America, Asia Pacific, Middle East and North African regions. Also available on these